We are wrestling.
Sometimes they're heroes, sometimes they're villains. It's easy to forget that wrestlers are human too, and sometimes they make mistakes and get arrested just like the rest of us. So let's have a look at 20 wrestlers' mugshots and why they got them. It turns out that Alberto Del Rio is a bit of a naughty boy. He's been arrested multiple times, including this one where he allegedly choked a woman and burned her passport. The accuser told police that Del Rio went mental, accusing her of cheating with other men before smashing her mobile phone, laptop and attempting to destroy her passport. He then shoved a sock in her mouth. Lovely! Apparently this was the biggest dude that Officer Dave Zaya ever arrested. Andre's ass was hauled into the cop shop due to slapping a WWE cameraman around in 1989. Andre had just finished wrestling the Ultimate Warrior and was apparently unhappy with the local cameraman shooting him at the time, so he ended up ragdolling him and then choked him out. Another large wrestler here, The Big Show, once claimed to be Andre the Giant's son, but we'll forget about that for now. He was arrested in 1998 for allegedly exposing himself to a motel employee. The case would eventually be dropped due to insufficient evidence, probably for the best considering this was right before his WWE debut. Things could have been very different if he was found guilty. I mean, imagine never witnessing that sumo match at WrestleMania. We can only dream. Booker T has one of life's incredible redemption stories. Nowadays he's a beloved Hall of Famer and 6-time World Heavyweight Champion, but things weren't always so good for the master of the Spinneroonie. A young Booker Huffman was arrested in 1987 for robbing a Wendy's, an act he would spend 19 months in prison for. These days Booker says prison was just what he needed to learn that he was on the wrong path, and that's when his life changed for the better. Being on the road all the time must really be a drag, and who doesn't need to release some pressure occasionally? Chris Jericho here was arrested at a gas station in 2010 due to being extremely intoxicated in public after a SmackDown taping. He was with Greg Hurricane Helms at the time and both were totally liquored up. Luckily, both men were very cooperative with the police and were eventually released on a $120 bond. A very young Shawn Michaels mugshot here, probably just around the time of first signing with WWE during his Rockers tag team years. Shawn was allegedly arrested for getting into an argument with police officers after refusing to leave a bar. Arguing with cops will usually lead to being arrested, Shawn. He would have at least another decade of wild behaviour before eventually finding redemption, and it's surprising he managed to keep out of the way of the police as much as he did, given his reputation in hindsight. Getting pulled over by the cops is never fun, especially knowing that you are in the wrong for speeding and are definitely going to get a ticket. That's what happened to Jack Swagger in 2013 after a SmackDown taping. However, he also allegedly had a load of pot in his glove compartment. He was charged with DUI, marijuana possession and speeding. Imagine speeding while high. The very thought of that just makes me feel sick. Jimmy Uso was pulled over in July 2021 for speeding and for being under the influence of alcohol. He admitted to the cops that he just consumed multiple beers before getting behind the wheel. This is a really recent story, and for Jimmy it seems that it's becoming a little bit of a problem. It was the second DUI charge for him in 2 years, being booked for similar charges in July 2019. The former Anvil Jim Neidhart led a troubled life, and his battles with various drugs was well known. In September 2009, Neidhart was charged with possession of 95 OxyContin pills and 28 methadone tablets. He was eventually charged with 6 counts, 2 for possession, 2 for trafficking, and 1 for burglary and grand theft. After Kurt Angle's WWE run came to an end, he had a very serious battle with his various demons, mostly concerning substance abuse. In constant pain from his wrestling career, he became addicted to painkillers, and one thing led to another. This arrest for a DUI in 2013 was his fourth in 6 years, and was the one that led him to seek outside help for his various addiction issues. An absolutely awful tale here, once again involving substance abuse for Lex Luger. Terrible times came Luger's way with this arrest for domestic abuse charges against wrestling's First Lady, Miss Elizabeth, who he was partnered with at the time. If only in this mugshot he knew what was coming next. Tragically, it would be less than 2 weeks before Elizabeth would die in his house due to complications from drugs. Lita was arrested in Columbia County, Georgia in 2011 for driving charges. She was charged with excessive speeding and driving with a licence that was either suspended or revoked. If his shoot interviews are to be believed, Marty Jannetty has lived a wild life in the wrestling business, but this arrest came about at the worst possible moment. After his huge success in the late 80s and early 90s alongside Rocker's teammate Shawn Michaels, Jannetty's career took a downward turn when Michaels was handpicked to take the WWE through the 90s as a main event superstar. By 2003, it was looking like Jannetty would finally get redemption after he was rehired by WWE, who had big plans to push him. Unfortunately, this arrest for DUI totally derailed that plan, as he was unable to make dates for shows due to being on a supervision order. Matt Hardy got into a physical altercation with his wife at a motel in 2014, and it looks like he came out of it the worse for wear. Someone at the hotel called the cops on January the 1st at around 5:45 AM. Both he and his wife were arrested. What a nice way to start a new year. The Nature Boy was not styling and profiling in November 2005, more raging behind the wheel, if anything. The then 56-year-old 16-time world champion was accused of throttling a fellow motorist during a road rage incident. He then kicked the gentleman's Toyota, causing a dent. After a heavy night out with WWE ECW wrestler Kevin Thorne in 2008, Santino decided to drive his car back to the hotel. Always a bad idea. The cops pulled Morella over when they noticed his car swerving across the road. He then failed all of the roadside tests and was promptly arrested. Known for his troubled life outside the ring, this is no doubt not the only mugshot you'll find on the internet of Scott Hall. This one was taken in 2011 when Hall resisted arrest. Hall had to serve 10 days in jail. The instant leading up to it was due to him being drunk and screaming at patrons in a Florida bar. Sid Vicious was arrested in Memphis while driving. He was initially pulled over when police saw he was driving without wearing a seatbelt. When the cops searched the vehicle, they found a bag containing 18 grams of marijuana on an armrest of his car. It also turned out that the master of the powerbomb was driving without a licence. WWE's first diva, Sunny, has led a tumultuous life since leaving the business behind, including being arrested multiple times and spending nearly a year behind bars. When she was released in 2020, she wasted no time of making a show of herself, and I don't mean via her X-rated OnlyFans account either. She was once again arrested for eluding a police officer, contempt through violating a violence restraining order, and driving a car during a second licence suspension. So there you go, that's a handful of wrestlers' mugshots and how they got them there. Believe me, there are plenty more of these online if you do a search, and all of them have a pretty colourful story behind them.
Are you ready?